Cheating comes if a man feels that he's under a woman's thumb. If you're on top of your man all the time, telling him what to do, how to do, if you're nagging him, you're increasing that probability of him cheating.
This control is just an unrealistic way to foster a good environment. God forbid, at some point in our marriage, you feel dissatisfied. I would expect you to come and talk to me. That doesn't happen a lot of the times because people don't want to hurt each other's feelings. That is just kind of the beginning of the end.
I think the best way to not cheat is...
Okay, we're sitting down to talk about cheating because I know that the definition and my thought process in general have changed so much throughout the years. If I had to think back to what I used to think about men or women cheat, I would just kind of accuse the cheater and that's it. And just kind of like you have to, leave the person that cheated on you and that's the end of it. Where today I do feel like it's a more complex kind of situation, especially in marriage or like long-term relationships. There's like so many factors and I completely analyze it differently than I used to. So I want to dive a little bit into it because I also really love when we kind of have our own perspectives on things. So are you ready?
Bring me the moonbird back. I need to relax a little because if I'm going to say what I actually think about all this stuff.
But babe, that's why people tuning into our episodes because they want to know about your...
Then they get mad at me. They all get mad at me. I don't know why they get mad at me.
But that's okay if they get mad at you.
I'm okay with them getting mad at me. I don't know. If I give my actual opinion on certain things and if I behave the way I normally behave, like right now, the tone I have with you when I talk to you is the tone I have with you when I talk to you all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sugarcoat this. So you got to tell me, do you want me to say the politically correct opinions on cheating or do you want me to tell you what I actually think?
I want you to say what you actually think and...
But tone it down a little.
No, don't tone it down. I want you to be you. I think we're okay. I think we had enough of the politically correct. I feel like we're not really progressing anywhere. I want people to get accustomed to listening to ideas and thoughts that they may not agree with yet, or they can derive value from it just by getting a different perspective. I think that's important. And that's the whole point of our interactions.
And I appreciate that. I want to point out that being a man coming onto your podcast and being your husband and considering that your audience is pretty much exclusively female, that it does put me, I don't want to say in a difficult position because I don't mind the difficulty of it, but it's an interesting situation. Whatever.
Let's get into it. I think that you always bring a lot of little nuggets of wisdom.
Thanks.
Here and there. Okay.
Here and there.
Here and there. So there was this findings, which I saved because when I read it, I thought it was interesting. From Psychology Today article that suggests that infidelity is complex and doesn't always correlate with relationship dissatisfaction. And it highlights that some cheaters report high levels of love for their partners while still seeking sexual or emotional satisfaction elsewhere, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And also kind of confusing because then why do people cheat? And when I say people, I mean, when I speak to you, like, why do men cheat?
Are you asking me why? You just giving me an open-ended question?
Yeah, let's get into it because there's obviously definition of cheating. There's different types of cheating. But for me, like just off the bat, why do you think men cheat?
I think it depends on the scenario of the relationship. So there's one reason to cheat when you have potentially when you're younger and you have a girlfriend and you're not planning to get married and you have like a relationship. I mean, it's still cheating if it's a girlfriend, right? And there's cheating when the relationship progresses. There's cheating when about to get married, not yet married. There's cheating early in the marriage. There's cheating later in the marriage.
Wait, so those are different cases?
There's varying reasons that men will cheat depending on what the scenario is. There's a common underlying theme through all of it, which is sexual urge, because men are pretty much animals, but there are varying layers of complexity depending on the scenario and the stage of the relationship.
Okay, so take me through it. So let's talk about a scenario with a girlfriend. So you have a girlfriend.
How old is the guy?
in their late, in their 20s, let's say.
Yeah, we just don't care.
Why you say we?
We as men, we just don't care.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't care.
Okay, so what would a girl do in that situation? You're in your 20s and you find out that your boyfriend cheated on you.
Probably date an older guy.
Okay, interesting. So you would say that anybody in their 20s...
Any man, say men. Why are you saying anybody?
Men, okay, yeah.
Any man in their 20s or early 20s,
yeah,
he is much more, I believe, likely to cheat because he's not necessarily taking that relationship seriously. What is the benefit to that young man, to that man in his early 20s? what is the benefit of that relationship? There's two benefits essentially to that relationship. One benefit is regular sex, where you don't have to chase for sex. You don't have to go every time and meet someone new. The ease of access to sex with the same partner early on in the relationship, that's one thing. And the other thing, when a guy is in his early 20s, now this isn't universal. I'm just talking about in general from kind of what I've experienced and the people that I've known. The second is ego. A young man in his early 20s, he's really got something to prove. So he needs to prove to the world that he can attract a woman, a beautiful woman, and so that his friends and other people in society will look at him and think that he's somewhat accomplished. So those are the two things. It's access to sex on a regular basis, and it's the external validation of showing the world that you were able to get a girlfriend. That's it. Those are the two reasons.
But what in a scenario where a young man, like in their 20s, you see a lot of, couples that are, let's say, sweethearts, like, how do you call it? High school sweethearts or whatever.
You get a lot of that too.
You get a lot of that too.
I'm sure there's that case too. I'm talking about from my experiences.
But is a man in their 20s, when they find, let's say, somebody and they say, okay, you are going to be my wife, like I'm going to marry you. Is he then in a different position and like view that differently, or is it still the same?
So with a man in his early 20s, if he's made that decision, first of all, he's making it from the decision of, quite frankly, like you're basically an adolescent still. Like you're still somewhat of a child, especially men.
That's true though.
We're very immature. So when men are in their, like, let's say we're talking about early 20s right now, when men are in their early 20s and they make this statement that, oh, you're going to be my wife, who they're going to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years from that is going to be a completely different person. When you met me at 38, I didn't really change a lot from 38 to 52. I evolved who I already was. Whereas you as a woman from the age of 20 when we got together to now 35.
Excuse me, I'm 34.
34, yeah. 35 coming up. Sorry, in September. I don't know why I said 35, 34. It's funny because as I said 35, I'm like, have we been together 15 years? I thought it was 13 years. And then you corrected me.
Yeah.
So, but you're a completely different person. Like yours wasn't an evolution. Yours was a revolution, right? Like you completely changed. So when a young man makes that decision in his early 20s that this is going to be my wife, he's going to go through his revolution when he's going to become a completely different person, not just an evolved version of his 20-year-old self. I think that's just kind of immature thinking that a man in his early 20s. Now, I know what people are going to say. They're going to say, yeah, but my husband, and we met and we've been together 30 years. Yes, there are those scenarios. I'm not talking about those scenarios. I'm talking about the scenarios. Outliers. I don't know what the statistics are. Yeah, I would think that men in their early 20s, when they're making statements that this is going to be my wife, I think a lot of those probably won't happen. They're not ready for it. They don't understand what marriage is. I think they're talking from a position of experiencing lust and not what actual like everlasting love is that requires a lot of, patience and work and effort.
What point do you think a man can make a decision? Because you were talking about revolution and evolution. At what age do you think men get to a point where it's like, okay, I know who I am as an adult and I can make this kind of life-changing decision? Is it an age? Is it like a specific decade?
I think it's
from your observation.
I don't think it's a chronological thing. I don't think it's like a number. It's the
maybe
level
when
of
like the
experience.
frontal cortex is fully developed. Maybe
I don't subscribe to that. I believe that for a man and for women, but we're talking about men. A man is the sum of his experiences. So when I met you, I was ready to make that decision because the experiences that I had in life when it came to relationships and life in general was sufficient enough for me to understand in a very short amount of time that you were the person that I will spend my life with. So to me, I just knew right away. Whereas I believe that if you would have met somebody closer to your own age, let's say when you were 20, and if let's say a guy would have been 24 or 25, he wouldn't have had the experience and the self-realization and the understanding of himself to be able to make that decision. Maybe he would have, but I believe, and again, I don't know the stats on this, but I believe that if a young man makes that decision, the probability of that marriage like not lasting, I would guess would be higher. I don't want to quote, I don't know, but I would guess would be higher because judging for myself, if I would have married the girl I was dating at 24, I would have been divorced.
Right.
If I would have married the girl that I was dating when I was like, 27, then 28, then 30, I would have divorced all of them.
I love that you said a man is the sum of his experiences. And I wonder if for men, especially because you mentioned like men are animals, I wonder if when the decision
I meant like sexually, they have a hard time controlling their impulses.
Right. But I wonder if when you make a decision that is fully informed, like at an age where you are fully like had the experiences to appreciate what you have in front of you in terms of a woman, is that one of the biggest kind of parts for a man to stay loyal to his wife?
It's not just having the experience of having different relationships and knowing what he wants. It's also knowing that he's going to have the ability to commit and not have sex with other women. When I met you, I knew that I could be with you and nobody else for the rest of my life.
But if you would have met me when you were younger, I feel like you wouldn't been able to make that decision. Or maybe you would have made it, but it's like it would have been
If I would have met you when I was younger, it would have ended bad.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'm happy I didn't meet you when I was younger.
Okay, so why do you think men in their 20s will cheat?
Men in their 20s will cheat because they will lack the self-control to not cheat. Because men in their 20s, they'll innocently say, hey, I'm just going out with my buddies. Mm-hmm. They'll go to a place where there's women. Mm-hmm. And they'll have the appearance of...
Just everywhere.
No, I mean, no, of course. But they're going to go to a place where there's women, that it's a place that's customary for people to meet each other.
Right.
To meet each other for like romantic or sexual encounters, to hook up. Right. That was the modern way of saying it. Mm-hmm. So a man will innocently, without any kind of intention, put himself in that situation because he's in his 20s and he's naive enough to think that it's okay for me to be there. Like, I can control myself. I can go there. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm going with my single buddies and it's okay. Right. But if he goes there and he's going to have a hard time controlling himself, and so he's likely to cheat in that scenario. The second reason he's going to cheat is because if he believes that in his mind, he's like, I'm dating this person, she's my girlfriend, but I'm young and I know I'm not going to get married. I know it's going to whatever. It's kind of like a
lot of rationalizations of.
It's like she's my girlfriend, but I'm in my early 20s. I'm gonna have another 10 girlfriends before I meet my wife. So if I cheat on this girl or not, first of all, A, she's not going to know. And second of all, why not? I can have this opportunity and I can have this experience, which I'm going to enjoy. There's no consequence. You know what I mean? If we had a daughter and she was like a teenager in her early 20s and she was dating a guy who also is in his early 20s, I would tell her, he's a great guy. I like him a lot, but just keep it casual.
Yeah.
Because he likely will cheat. I don't know.
That will create a lot of trust issues.
But but it shouldn't, because it's one thing to trust a man who's already kind of grounded and who understands kind of who he is. He understands the value of a partner and he's building something more meaningful versus a guy who's in his early 20s who there's no consequences to him cheating. What's the consequence? The consequence is that his girlfriend's going to find out, she's going to get pissed off and she's going to break up with him. Okay, he'll get another girlfriend. Most men who had a lot of experience in dating and had a lot of different girlfriends, once they eventually get married, it's a benefit to the marriage actually that man 100%. That man, he already knows what's up, right?
Yeah. To your point, when you said there's a big benefit of a man obviously having all these experiences, I remember when we were dating and my mom went to the hair salon and it was when you just proposed to me. And, everyone was talking in our town that you proposed to me and stuff.
In our town, you make it sound like we're
or
from
in a small little town, Toronto. Right. Everyone was kind of talking in the community about it, obviously with the age gap and all the things. We were like a juicy item for a second. I remember she was getting her hair done and the hairdresser was like, he was dating so many girls and he had all these casual girlfriends, whatever. And my mom is like, good. This is great news. It means he did everything he needed to do and it's time to settle down. I think for them, it was kind of like an alarming thing. For my mom, it's like, okay, green flag, we can move on.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't have any comments on that. But no, those women in the hair salon should mind their own business. But yeah.
No, what are you talking about? They're essential for a well-functioning society.
They're better than the internet, right? You get more information from them.
Exactly. I want to introduce you to something that I've shown the kids, and I think it will be very helpful, especially recently because you've been running around a little bit like a chicken without a head.
Why did you show the kids before you showed me?
Because I wanted to stress test how the kids will react to it and then bring it to you.
So you prioritized me over the kids by making them the guinea pigs.
Correct.
Cool.
This is love. You come first, baby. Well, I come first, then you come, and then the kids.
Gotcha.
Okay, so Moonbird. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Look at this. This is a breeding device, and it basically feels like a little birdie in your hand. So you know how sometimes when you have super hectic days and you feel like your mind is scattered all over the place. And I know that I told you before, we did a couple of breathing exercises and stuff like that, but I feel like it's difficult, especially for a brain that runs at 100 miles a second, yours.
Talking about my brain?
Your brain.
All right.
It's hard for you to just kind of stop and do this breathing exercises. So this device is basically you're putting it in your hand. Mm-hmm. You're putting your finger on here.
That's your thumb.
Your thumb, yes, exactly. You put your thumb on it and then you hold it in your hand and it inflates and deflates, which signals when it's time to breathe in and time to breathe out. And it's amazing because you don't have to think about, like, you don't have to put like anything on your phone or open an app of some kind. You just let this guide you, which is beautiful.
What is that little green light?
This is where you put your thumb. So it actually measures your heart rate.
It scans your thumb?
Yeah, it measures. So it uses it to measure your heart rate.
No, that's what I meant by scan it.
Yeah. And then also HRV. Do you know what your HRV is?
High resolution videos.
No.
HRV is high resolution videos.
It's heart rate variability.
Okay.
Isn't
so that
cool?
measures your heart rate too?
Yeah, and it shows you
where does it display the heart rate?
On the app.
Oh, there is an app. Okay,
there
wonderful.
There is an app. Yeah, there is an app and you can see where your body is at and how relaxed you are. So you can also, if you're thinking like, okay, I'm kind of getting ahead of my nervous system and calming it down, you can check the app to see that it's actually happening.
Okay.
Isn't it amazing?
I love it.
Okay, so I got you one. Look, it's blue. It's beautiful.
Thank you. This is very nice.
So you open it up.
I love the fact that it measures your heart rate too, because it gives you kind of the result of the breathing exercise, which is
exactly. So you don't think it's just a placebo effect. How beautiful is that? Okay, you shake it.
Stop. Really?
Yeah,
you shake it?
Shake it to kind of like, hello, I'm here. I'm ready.
That's how you turn it on? You shake it?
You
Stop.
Shake it.
That's amazing.
Good job. Then put your thumb on it. Okay, so you see? You feel it? Okay, now sit. Now when it inflates, you take in a breath. Isn't it amazing?
No, it's really cool.
Isn't it amazing?
You know what? I knew about this thing before. Like, it's actually.
You should have it beside you at the office, just in between calls to like reconvene, whatever with yourself, but then also before sleep.
Yeah, this is really cool. This is a lot. This is really nice.
Okay, and you say that I don't get you gifts. Look at this.
I never said you don't get me gifts. You don't get me gifts, but I never said you don't get me gifts. But this is very nice. Thank you. And it is teal. It's not blue.
Teal. If you guys want to learn more about Moonbird and its amazing functionalities, go to moonbird.live/Valeria. I also have a special code for you, 25% off. That is moonbird.life/Valeria.
That reputation that I kind of had where, that I dated a lot, girls would get mad at me. And I'll tell you why girls would get mad at me. This was already later on. This was already in my early 30s.
Yeah.
Because I would go on a date with somebody, okay? And then after the date ended, I just didn't call them again.
Ghosting.
No, I went on a date and I didn't call them again.
Yeah, but you didn't tell them, hey, I'm not interested.
Why would I call someone to tell them that I'm not going to be calling them again? It just didn't make sense to me.
Because you weren't.
But the action of not calling them again.
That's not how it works. It's the same thing when we have a conversation and then I leave mid-conversation and you're like, are we done?
Stop. No. There was no text messaging at the time. So for me, it means I would have to call someone.
Correct.
And say, hi, hey, whatever, Sandy. We went out on that date and had a really good time. But look, we're not going out again. I'm really not interested.
Literally, yes.
Literally, no. Men typically don't do that.
Do you know that first of all, that's the problem. And I think that's completely...
Texting is different.
It's not that it's... Okay, I understand, yes, to your point. But I think that it shows your character, honestly, for you to do it. Because again, I'm giving you the example of you always get mad at me when we have a conversation and I mid-conversation... No, it's not different at all. And I mid-conversation leave. You're like, are we done talking? Like, what's going on? Literally the same thing. You went on a date with this girl.
But I'm
Why
not
if she had the best time?
If I was on the date with her and I just got up and left without saying anything, I would agree. That's the equivalent of what you just said, of you talking to me in mid-sentence, walking out the door. When you do that sometimes, it's not like you had a date, you drove the girl home, you said goodnight, and that's it. Now,
there was no period.
Hold on.
No.
If, let's say, at the end of the date, there's like a kiss.
Yeah.
Okay, then you got to call him and tell him, listen, it's not going to work out. Because then, but in any case, you'll be an asshole in that scenario too. My point is, if there was some kind of if on the date, there was some kind of a message that I as a man would send to say that I'm interested, and then I wouldn't call, that would be wrong.
But it's not on you. You don't know how someone else interpreted. Maybe for you.
Interpreted?
Is that not a word?
No, interpreted? Not that I know of. Maybe it is a word.
How do you say it?
Interpreted?
Interpreted. How do you know that maybe like you laughed at her joke and for her it was okay? He's interested.
I know, but it's not my responsibility.
It is.
No, it's not.
Gary, okay, I will agree to
Okay,
disagree.
so how about we
Let
do
me
this?
tell you.
How
I'm
about-
telling you. Wait,
Yeah.
let me finish. I'm tell Dennis now because he's dating. I tell him if you're not
Dennis, your
interested,
brother.
my brother. I tell him if you go on a date,
Yeah.
you are not interested. Let the girl know. It is the least you can do because something that boggles my mind, especially at his ages, and you're dating already. You know, girls
He's
in their
already
20s.
about the age that I was when I met
Right. You need to respect people's time and the mental capacity that it takes. I want to break this nonsense of like the ghosting and the like girls spending time thinking like, is this something? Is he interested? Is he not interested? No,
To
I'm
your
not
point-
interested. You're amazing.
your-
Thank you so much.
To your point, I think that if I was dating probably past the time that I met you, then maybe I would have been more kind of sensitive as I got older. And I would have been more, okay, like I'm calling.
Respectful of their
I
time.
don't think it's a lack of respect. Just so you know, it's not as if girls are sitting there calling guys afterwards and saying, hey, just so you know, I'm not going to be going out with you again.
I don't know.
They do.
Really?
So who's going to be teaching like our 3 sons about all this stuff?
We'll need to align on it. And I think that my way is the right way.
So
No
what I
ghosting.
do, so hold on a second.
That's a
What
thing of the
my
past.
belief is that you always have to be nice.
Correct.
So when you're going out on a date, no, this and that, you have to be nice. I think the only part that you and I are potentially in disagreement is the protocol after the date.
Correct. It's
That's
the
it.
clarity. You have to be clear. No like ambiguous signs. You have to be clear. You were great. I had the best time. I don't see a future here. Best of luck. Thank you. Bye. Moving on. Don't you think that's the least you can do? I want to move on, though, to talk about men in their 30s because I think the 20s, it makes sense. I agree with you on all those points. I think it's very common. I mean, when I saw, even from my mom's experience, obviously she got married at a super young age. I used to be very resentful of the fact that my biological father wasn't really present. And now looking back, the guy was like 20, 21. What did he know in life? So I agree with you. 20s is definitely a time not to make such like life-changing decisions because you most of the time won't stick to those
But that's-
responsibilities. Two different things.
That's 2 different things.
Of course,
It's
'cause
the
you-
decision and the cheating. I
Correct.
just wanted to rationalize the cheating for you. Not rationalize it, but explain.
Explain. Yeah.
I'm not even condoning it. Let's make something clear. I'm
Yeah.
not condoning it and saying it's okay. I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm just explaining to you
I understand.
for a man in his early 20s.
I understand. Let's move to men in their 30s. How does cheating change? Like what happens in the male brain?
Or is it dating or marriage?
Let's start with dating.
With dating, if a man is dating and in his 30s and he has the intention to get married, he's far less likely to cheat. It's a similar principle to a man in his 20s, where if a man in his 30s is dating and he's dating casually for fun and he's just simply enjoying the relationship, he either does not know or he has no intention of marrying this person in the future. I think a man in his 30s, if he's dating someone and he doesn't know if this could potentially be his wife, then it won't.
Right.
You know
So
what I
if
mean?
it's not a definite yes, it's a no.
If it's a I don't know, then it's a no. When it comes to cheating, it's a bit different. A man in his 30s is a little bit more mature than a man in his 20s, right?
But I feel like the principles are the same.
A man in his 30s is more respectful because
Yeah.
a man in his 30s has become more emotionally mature. We're still like children in 30s. That really hasn't changed, but we're still somewhat more emotionally mature, and as that maturity results in being at least like somewhat more respectful. Because now we're a little older. Maybe we have a sister. Maybe we have a close friend who's a woman. Maybe we've seen now in our 30s, we understand the dynamic between our mother and our father. And if the father's mistreated the mother, you don't want to be that guy. Your morality has evolved in your 30s. So now you're more worried about getting caught.
Right.
I was hoping you'd laugh at that because I thought that
It is, yeah.
it's true, but
I'm
it's
absorbing
funny.
all of this.
It's funny, but it's true. So now in your 30s, it's not like your morality doesn't prevent you from continuing to cheat on a woman who you don't think you're going to marry. You feel bad about it. So you don't want to get caught because you don't want to be bad. And there's also a portion of it is a lot of it is reputation management. Because if you become the guy who's known as cheating,
Yeah.
because now you're in your 30s and you're looking for a wife to settle down with, if it's known, if it gets around that
Yeah.
you're a cheater, then you're potentially cannibalizing like a future
But
partner.
what drives a man to continue being in a relationship when you're in your 30s with a woman that you know you're not going to marry?
Sex. Regular sex.
But you don't think it's also social kind of expectations?
No.
Really?
No.
You don't think that, now, okay, I have a steady job, I have a career, I have this, okay, now I kind of need to find a wife, this one fits the box.
I think it's one is sex and two is the laziness of going out and getting sex again. So it comes down to sex.
How would you spot if this is a man that's not going to marry you or like take you seriously?
You have to look if his actions are reflecting his intentions. If a man makes you feel secure and he's prioritizing you, then he wants to marry you.
It's like a physical, like, yes, you feel emotionally secure, but it's also like you feel it in your body. I think for women especially, we're so intuitive and a lot of us ignore those signs. And even if on the surface it looks like everything is super legit, if your body makes you feel like you're unsafe in that environment, that's all you need.
So when a man is certain, he behaves in a certain way. I think you see it. Like, you have friends and you know people. You and I both know people. When we go out on double dates, let's say with people who aren't married yet, and they're like kind of like not really talking about whether they'll get married or not, you can see the way a man behaves towards that woman.
Yeah.
If he's serious about her, what his intentions are. You can see it in how his body language. You can see it in how he looks at her. You can see it in you can hear it in what he says, the way he talks about her. You can feel that certainty.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, what I would advise women, again, this is coming from me, who I'm not a woman, and I'm not really one to advise women on anything except content creation. I advise them on that all the time. If you're not sure that his intentions, then he's likely he doesn't have those intentions. Because as a man, we're going to make it so obvious if that's what we want. We're not going to play this game. We're going to be like, this is what we want. This is what a man would be like, this is what I want. And all of his actions will map to his intention to secure you as a partner for life. That's it. So if you don't feel it, it's not there.
So if there's indecisiveness, because I always wonder from a man's perspective, like, do men maybe hold themselves back because they don't know if the partner is ready, like the girlfriend is ready?
Because they think they could potentially do better.
Really?
Of course.
Okay.
It's the same for women.
Yeah, 100%.
Of course.
Yeah.
When I was dating throughout my life, especially when I got into my 30s and I became like marrying age, there were women who, as I was dating them, they kept looking around. Like sometimes when I was in the room, they'd be like looking around. When I was like my early 30s and I had like my group of dudes who we'd go out with and we'd go to bars with and we'd all meet girls and stuff, we always had this kind of ongoing joke. It's like, she's looking for the bigger, better deal. The BBD, she's looking for the BBD. She's looking for the bigger, better deal, right? And that's cool. Like, and I think as a young man, you get offended by that when you're like, oh, she's a gold digger and this and that. To me, once you get past a certain age, you're like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, the girl's got to, she values herself a certain way. And if I'm not meeting that expectation, she's going to look around. Sometimes women are disrespectful about the way they do it. And I've had that experience. And some of them are more subtle about it.
In a situation where a man is in their 30s and they are married, okay, we're not talking about early 30s yet because it is a little bit of a continuation of your 20s, the early 30s. When you are married, because there are a lot of men that are married in their 30s, what's up with the cheating? Like, what happened there?
Cheating, whether it's men or women who do the cheating in a marriage is truly tragic. It really is. Like, to be on a more serious note, it really is tragic. Breaking up a family and getting the kids involved, it's just, look, in general how I feel about divorce. Yeah. I'm not a fan, and every time that we hear that somebody else got divorced, it truly bothers me. Like, it saddens me. Like, it hits me as if I heard
No, you walk around with it for
I'm upset
a
about
little
it.
bit. Yeah.
I'm upset about it. It feels like someone died.
Yeah.
Because I come from a broken home where my parents got divorced later. My parents got divorced when I was in my early 20s. And so for me, knowing how much it just breaks families, and the fact that it happened to me when I was in my early 20s, and remembering how badly it affected me, I can't even imagine how a small child could process his parents splitting up. If you were to ask me why men do it, I don't know. It's a harder question to answer. Some of them, honestly, like, I hate to say it, some of them are just sex addicts. Some of them, they're addicts. They can't control it. They're really, truly, like, they are.
Right.
And they should.
Or even if you're not an addict, maybe you're not getting The satisfaction.
That's a hold on. That's a different
Yeah.
situation.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna get
Well,
to
you're
that.
talking about extreme, like sex addicts.
Listen.
Like how many of them are sex addicts?
You wouldn't.
Really?
Yeah, you wouldn't know. Yeah, you wouldn't know.
That's crazy.
You're giving a gross face, but like I don't. Like it is what it is.
No, not a gross face about that. I'm just saying. I feel like that's not like.
It may not be. It depends on the. It depends on the age. Okay, so you want to get very real.
Literally, what are we doing here otherwise?
So a man up until a certain age,
Yeah.
men are all born sex addicts. We're
Just feel like, don't
we're
you think
tough.
it's a bit of an excuse? Though?
It's not. The reality is that a man who's in his 20s and probably 30s and even a little bit beyond, it's like as men, we just have a hard time controlling our impulses, where sex rules our lives in every way possible. Like everything that we do, the actions we take, making money,
To be honest with you, I think that I didn't believe this. I would have disregarded this and make it an excuse. But seeing how popular OnlyFans is and how much money it generates, and the fact that
pornography in general,
but OnlyFans, because there's so much data there that is available to the public,
Right.
like you can really see that the platform consists of, like, I don't even know the statistics, but it's mainly men that pay.
of course.
And it's all ages men, not just like young.
Of course.
So I believe you, what you're saying. Like
Yeah.
it's because there's some sick stuff going on there.
I don't see an industry, or at least an industry at scale, where women are satisfying their sexual desires in an industry where men are doing what women are doing for men on the opposite side of that. So I don't see it. I don't see this like industry. Whereas the industry of satisfying a man's sexual urges is huge. But the industry for satisfying a woman's sexual urges really isn't, there's not much there. There's maybe.
It's growing.
Maybe. Listen, you go to Miami, every few blocks there's a strip club. There's not men stripping there. There's women stripping there, right? So you
Yeah.
don't really see that infrastructure for
Yeah.
women. So the point is that that's very reflective of reality. So the
Yeah.
reality is that men have they're really motivated and guided by their sexual desires. They're wired to reproduce, but to spread their genetics as widely as possible.
Yeah.
Whereas women are no, but that's what it
No,
is.
I'm laughing because the first person that came to mind is Elon Musk. So I'm like, yeah,
There you go.
he's doing what nature intended him to do.
But that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Women don't have the capacity to produce 1,000 babies because women have to physically give to birth them.
Yeah.
Men have the capacity to produce an unlimited amount of babies. Unlimited. So
But damn, when you put it like that, then what is this whole institution of marriage and
the institution
being with
of
one person for
it's
the rest
because
of your
the
life?
evolution, again, this is all my opinion, guys. I'm not an expert on any of this shit, but
Yeah.
because in my opinion is the whole concept of marriage and monogamy, it's the evolution of humanity. But the thing is that our
You're
minds,
still finding nature.
our minds
Yeah.
are evolving at a different pace than our physical bodies. 100 years ago, we didn't have telephones.
Yeah.
Look at us now with the internet and shit. That's in 100 years. Look how our minds have evolved in the last 100 years of what we're able to do. But our bodies haven't changed at all. So that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the fact that the institution of marriage, the institution of monogamy, a family unit, these are all things that have only been in the last few thousand years, but our bodies haven't changed.
Okay, but what's interesting? I mean, there's obviously a big discussion of this whole like monogamy and marriage and all the things, but I have to tell you that I see more and more and hear more and more of open relationships,
Right.
open marriages.
Yeah.
Like I think that there's also something happening where for a lot of people, this feels so drastic to what nature intended us to do that they're now finding the medium.
It's an outlier. I don't believe that this is the norm. I don't believe that we're going towards a society of open marriages and like crazy orgies and all this stuff. You may see it more, but there's a fundamental importance of the family unit. And the family
Absolutely.
unit cannot function in an open marriage, in my opinion. They can try.
As it
but
is now.
It'll always...
I think it will change. In like 100 years, I think it's going to look different. That's my prediction. I just don't want to be around for that.
It may look different. You know what?
It's a lot of work.
My father, who he passed away several years ago, but he wouldn't call it a theory because my father always spoke like everything was fact.
Fact, yeah.
Yeah, he was very sure of himself. I'm a lot more modest in that sense where I'm always like,
Which people, by the way, say that you are like that, but if they would have met your father, they would see in a whole other level of that.
yeah. But for me, but I don't feel I'm that way at all because I'm always very vocal about the fact that this is just my opinion.
But it's just your
And
tone. The way you speak,
Sure.
it's very definitive.
Sure, but I'm always very clear about the fact that I don't know, and this
Yeah.
is a theory, and
Yeah.
this is what I think. So my dad once told me, he said to me, do you know why marriage was invented? And I don't remember how old I was. I said, no, tell me, why was marriage invented? He said, so what would happen is, and again, I don't know if I'm not saying I agree with this. I'm just telling you the story my father told me.
Yes.
So what my father told me is like, what happened was when we were cavemen, a man and a woman would come together and they would come up with like a mutual agreement that a man would provide a woman with shelter. A man would go out and hunt and bring the woman back food. And in exchange, that woman would keep the cave nice. She would have sex with him and she would bear his children. It's the basics, right? It's like the basic exchange of a man and a woman. The reason marriage came to be is he said what would happen is when the caveman left the cave woman at home and he would go out to go hunting to bring back food for the cave woman and potentially their babies, another caveman would come, take the woman, hit her on the head, grab her by her hair and drag her away because he's like, listen, look at this guy. He's got a nice woman. The cave looks great. It's clean. It's beautiful. I got to take her. While this guy's out hunting, I'm going to grab her and I'm going to take her to my cave. And I'm going to have sex with her over there. And she's going to clean my cave. And we don't need her kids.
I want to know
And
how
so my
old
father,
were you
I don't
when he
remember.
told you this
So
story?
my father explained to me, he said, because we're civilized, like humans are civilized people, we had to create a law to say, okay, if you're gonna do this with a woman and have this arrangement where she's cleaning your cave and having sex with you and raising the kids, then you gotta have a law so that another caveman can't come, hit her in the head and drag her out.
So incorrect. It's crazy.
But
to
hold
me.
on a second, but it's logical, right?
I know that it's logical, but there is history
be.
to how
There may be.
marriage was born. It was born from purely like protecting assets and
That may be the case, but my
reputation
story,
and legacy of a family.
but my
But
story
I
sounds
want to
great.
know, were you like 8
But
going
hold
to
on,
sleep
I don't
when
remember.
he told you about this?
No,
need
I
to
was an
know.
adult. But
Okay.
but I like the fact that it's illegal for some dude to come over here while I'm like away and bonk you on the head and fucking grab you and take you as his wife.
Some countries where that's still allowed.
But not this country.
Correct. What I'm trying to get to in this conversation is to truly understand the whole cheating angle, because there's also different kind of cheating, right? There's the emotional cheating, there's the physical cheating, and
You're asking me, I think, why a married man would cheat.
yes.
Well, there's a couple of things. If a married man feels unappreciated, that might cause him to cheat. For what unappreciated for any reason. If he feels ignored, if he feels that, quite frankly, if there's no sex going on in the marriage, or an inadequate amount of sex going on in the marriage, or if the sex has become almost like clinical, or it's just being done for it to get done because the wife feels that she has to do it because that's part of her duty or something. If she feels like, if it's sex from like of a woman's duty, if she feels she's doing it for that reason because it's her husband and she has to, a man will feel that, right? So a man might inadvertently go out and do that. In some cases, a man intentionally will go out and say, okay, I need to do this. I still love my wife, but I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it quietly and no one's going to know and it's not going to hurt anybody, but it's going to give me what I need, which
Right.
I think is the beginning of the end. I think it's a very tough, like that's not good.
So if he doesn't feel appreciated, but the sex is great, he won't cheat.
If the sex is great, he'll feel appreciated.
So you're
But that's like,
you're
honestly,
just saying men are very simple like that.
Yeah.
Like it's just that basic.
there has to be that bridge, that sexual bridge between two people who are constantly trying to improve themselves.
Yeah.
There has to be that sexual bridge. If that sexual bridge isn't there between those two people, because people should go apart. People should, like a woman should go off and work on herself and fulfill her like needs outside
Yeah.
of sexual needs, like be with her friends, have hobbies. A man should too, just like I'm on my motorcycles. See, I knew
was waiting
you
for that
knew I was
one.
going to talk about my motorcycles. Just like I go and do my thing and
Yeah.
you know, and I'm trying to improve myself. You're trying to improve yourself and we come together.
Okay, so what
That's how a
about-
man and woman come back together. That's how they stay connected. I don't know. I don't have the data on it. But if I were to guess, I would believe that if somebody has a strong sexual relationship in a marriage, especially after a long time, they likely have everything else is doing well. Like everything else is firing on all cylinders. Whereas if they have a bad sexual relationship, my guess is that a lot of the other things are failing. Now that you have me thinking about it, a lot of men, they may do it, they may cheat because they may be satisfied with their wife and everything's fine.
Yeah.
But then they want to know if other women still desire it. They're
Well,
still
because
desirable.
they're still But is it what, seeking external
Yeah,
validation?
there's different types of external validation. I mean, a lot of the external validation have to do with materialism and whatnot.
Yeah.
And for society at large to believe that you're somebody. But sexual validation is a little different. It's far more primal, especially for a man. Women, men, I'm not even talking about people who cheat, but like if a woman goes out and a man looks at her, or a man, let's say she's out without her husband and like another guy didn't see her ring or didn't care and he sends her over a drink.
Mm-hmm.
A woman who's been married for like, 10, 20 years.
Nice.
Yeah, it's nice. It's flattering.
Yeah.
Sure. If a married woman is out and a man sends her a drink, it's normal for a man to send a woman a drink.
Right.
But for a man, it's not normal for a woman to make an advance on a man. I've been out of the game for a long time, so maybe
I feel
that's
like
changed.
the game has changed.
Maybe. But in my time, it wasn't common. Women would always wait for the man to approach them.
Right.
If a man gets approached and he's flattered by that might be so overwhelming for him that he might make that mistake. As a man, you need to put continuous effort into bettering yourself and to staying connected with your wife. So neither of you have the notion or develop the intention to go off to the side. Because I believe that to have a good and happy life, you invest everything in the one partner that you have, that you've chosen to be with for life. I just take that commitment very seriously. So I think that's the best thing that you can do.
You know what shocked me the most about marriage is how much of it is a self-improvement project. Because I think that for a lot of us, before we are in a long-term marriage, we think that two people come together and all your work is focused on growing this relationship, where in reality, the relationship, a successful relationship, is the outcome of growing and bettering yourself as an individual.
Absolutely.
And this is where there's, I think, a little bit of a disconnect in society. You know what I mean?
You just hit the nail on the head. People work on creating these like artificial scenarios where let's go do this together. Let's go do that together. And then people just get sick of each other. I get the question often. It's like, your wife let you ride motorcycles? And it's interesting. And when I get that question, it just reminds me of kind of the nature of our relationship, where I let you go off and do whatever you need to do. You let me go off and do whatever I need to do. I do it for you to make you happy. You do it for me to make me happy. And we go and we work on ourselves separately. We're not always together.
Yeah.
For people who kind of may think
I feel like people think the opposite, but
that we're always together.
Yeah.
Well, because we work together.
Sure. And but we are apart a lot.
Well,
Like,
you
we do
travel. You
things
travel. You
individually
travel a lot.
Yeah.
I took the boys fishing on Saturday. You didn't come. The fact that you don't have to be with me for that time, that's cool, because I come back feeling better. I feel good. I've enjoyed myself, and you do the same thing. You're going to Japan by yourself. Cool.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy for you to do it.
I didn't realize until like later on in our marriage how much I appreciate the no control relationship that we have, because I think, again, what I see a lot happening because of this unrealistic expectations from marriage is there's a lot of control happening.
Cheating comes from that too.
From control.
Cheating comes if a man feels that he's under a woman's thumb.
Yeah. Absolutely.
He's going to have it. So that, I think that's a good takeaway for women, that if you're on top of your man all the time and you're telling him what to do, how to do, if you're nagging him, you're increasing that probability of him cheating.
I think it also applies to kids. I think honestly, in general, this control is just a very unrealistic way to lead and to foster like a good environment, if it's with your children or with your husband, your spouse, whatever it is. But again, that's something that's been kind of accepted as a norm in a relationship. I 100% agree. I call it the golden cage, right? It's like my biggest fear is to feel like I'm caged, even if from the outside everything looks amazing and I have all the things I have.
Yeah.
But if I feel trapped in my own relationship, that's the scariest thing. There may be a lot of studies around it and a lot of like explanations of all the things, but it comes down to really being able to trust your partner. And I think that comes also from the beginning. I think that foundation in a relationship needs to be established from the beginning. To your point, when we start dating, from the get-go, I didn't give you any reasons to not trust me. And the same thing with you. And I think that's why it was kind of easier to build on top of that. But also I have to say that if, God forbid, at some point in our marriage, I don't know, in 20 years, you feel dissatisfied or whatever, I would expect you, based on the nature of a relationship, to come and talk to me. So it's also
when I'm 72 years old, I'll come and talk to you.
Come talk to me. But that communication aspect is so important as well. And I think that doesn't happen a lot of the times because it's like people don't want to hurt each other's feelings. They don't want to kind of rock the boat, right? And they make that bad decision of like, oh, I do something no one will know. But it's just kind of the beginning of the end.
The best way not to cheat isn't necessarily by developing the discipline to not cheat. I think the best way to not cheat is developing a relationship that is so satisfying for both partners that you won't even want to.
Exactly.
You got to understand something. Men who don't cheat, they won't go to a place that would even tempt them.
Right.
Not because I love my wife so much, I'm so strong, I could go and have all of this around and I won't cheat. No, because if you're satisfied, you won't want to go to that stupid place. Discipline, not to cheat on your spouse, you're just treating the symptom. Treating the disease is being in a relationship that's so satisfying because you're putting so much effort into it that you don't even want to be in a place that would tempt you to. You just don't even put yourself in the situation. You have no reason to go.
Yes. And I think looking at it from that perspective feels more empowering because at some point in our conversation, when you were going about how cheating is so natural for men and they need to reproduce and all that,
it's not like, natural. That's just the way we're wired.
Yeah. But when I'm listening to that, I was thinking to myself, okay, well, we're playing a losing game. You know what I mean? Because you're fighting nature here. But to your point, like I love what you just said because it's, again, not thinking about how I prevent my spouse not to cheat on me. It's more on, and then again comes the control, I think, into that play, but rather really focus on how can I develop myself to be, to make my husband feel like I'm the prize, like you
Absolutely.
Want to be around me. This is a relationship you want to keep. You know what I mean? And put effort into that.
It's a beautiful flywheel. Like it's a beautiful circle, right? It's this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy where I believe that the key to a happy marriage and a long-lasting marriage, which results in happy and productive children, which results in kind of success and happiness and all of the positive things life will bring generationally, it comes down to the two people in a marriage at any given time. And those two people, their responsibility, if they want to have generations of thriving human beings, is to constantly be working on themselves within that marriage, and within the marriage, and most importantly, separately.
Yeah.
Right. So by you going out and working on yourself, I see that, and I'm more motivated to work on myself. I work more on myself. You see that, you're more motivated to work on yourself.
Yeah.
When we have the physical, the emotional, the mental, we keep the business, the financial, the spiritual, our relationship with our kids. When you and I work on that together, we become not only stronger as a family, we become more attracted to each other.
Yeah.
As we're more attracted to each other, our sex life continues to evolve and improve. Our sex life continues to evolve and improve. It goes back and it goes into those things. Now I want to be even more fit. I want to be even, more engaging. And you want to continue to build and build and build yourselves as individuals and come together. And then your kids see that. Your kids, that pours over into their relationships because they have that attitude and they have that mentality. So it's this beautiful ecosystem that people can build. And so cheating doesn't have to happen if people have this attitude of self-improvement. Now, there's another reason cheating happens, and we didn't really touch on it.
What is it?
It's choosing the wrong partner.
Ooh,
That's
okay.
right. So everything we just talked about and the conclusions that we just came to, I think they're all correct.
Yeah.
And and it took us a little bit of time in this conversation to come up with these, to come to these conclusions. But the thing is that a lot of times people choose the wrong partner, and people choose the wrong partners for a number of different reasons. They need to validate themselves because they feel this is the right person. This person checks all the boxes. They may lack an emotional connection. It may be parents pushing their children into this is the person you should marry. So there's a lot of different reasons. Women are motivated because a man has a lot of money. Men are motivated simply because of a woman's appearance, right? Those things happen too. And so when, to prevent, if we're talking about preventing infidelity, you have to look into yourself when you're choosing that partner. Is that the correct partner?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So you have to be more analytical about that. And are you making the decisions on the partner just based on superficial kind of ideologies, or are you choosing a partner based on a deeper connection?
But there's this thing going online of men are not necessarily, there's not like the one. It's more like it's the girl that's in front of them when their time kind of comes, when they feel like, okay, now I need to get married. So the one that's in front of them is the...
Yeah, but circumstances definitely play a role in it. Yeah, absolutely. I feel you're the one for me.
Right.
But what if you weren't? And the one for me died 300 years ago. I don't know,
Right.
So yeah, of course it's someone who's in front of you. People are looking at it. That analysis that you saw, that looks at it in the micro. When you're this age and doing this thing, then yeah, so circumstantially, the person who is compatible, who at the time is the one, but that person is the one within the subset, within the cohort of human beings who you have access to at the time that you are ready to get married. We really took into account kind of all the reasons why men cheat. That's you're asking me for my opinion on why men cheat. We didn't really dive into why women cheat, but to me,
I have to say, I think it's from very similar kind of reasons. Although if women have the emotional aspect to it, where I think men maybe don't really have, because women are not necessarily as inclined to make decision based on just like their sexual urges. There's a lot of emotional needs that need to be met for women. So I think when those needs are not met, then that happens as well. They don't feel seen by their spouse, or they're controlled by the spouse.
But that's the flip side of the argument. Because when you asked me, I talked about a lot of the things that the woman does wrong.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
In terms of making those efforts to make sure that the man is satisfied.
Yeah.
But it goes the other way too. We just didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
I don't want people to think that it's a one-sided thing and it's all
not
on the
at
woman.
all.
It's on the man too.
Yeah.
Right?
I think for women, I know, it's very important to feel appreciated, of course. It's important to feel seen.
How does a woman feel appreciated by a man? Oh, the tables have turned. Now I'm asking. Now I'm asking the questions.
Okay, ask the questions. Okay, that's a great question, because I do think that there's different needs for different type of women. Some women, maybe for them the sexual aspect is, that's for them is also a sign of appreciation when they see that their man is attracted to them. Like for them, that's a strong factor, which I think in general.
So when a woman is working on her appearance, when she's working on her health and her fitness, and she's trying to be as attractive for her man as possible, she feels appreciated when he's initiating sex all the time. And
but I guess for me, it's like it's all encompassing when I say the word seen, right? Being seen is like for the efforts that you put into yourself. My earrings are just keep falling off. It's the effort that you put into yourself. It's the effort that you put into your family, your children, your house. You know what I mean? That's very important for women. For some women, appreciation looks like gifts, and appreciation looks like romantic gestures and surprises. So to me, it's just this idea of putting spotlight on a woman is very important to us.
Do I put a spotlight on you?
Yeah. All the time. Look at all the spotlights around me. I think that it's also important, that connection, and that, being able to have conversations.
You're talking a lot about in generalities.
Yeah.
And now I'm curious.
Yeah.
What does a man need to do specifically for a woman to feel appreciated?
I think physical touch is important. And when I say physical touch, it's not even the actual act of sex. It's the in between and around,
like slapping a girl on the butt when you walk by.
Yeah, or like the hug, or just like out of, just kind of out of the blue, just signs of like, again, you
know what that reminds me of?
What?
Remember when you were cooking something and I came up and I smacked you on your butt?
Yeah.
And the camera was on because you were FaceTiming with your mom and she saw me smack your butt?
Yeah. But you see, this is such a great example. So you did that and I was like, my mom is on the phone, and
but you stopped and you said, my mom's on the phone.
Right. But my mom, as a woman, because that was her reaction as a woman, not as my mother, but actually both, she was like, I love seeing that. You know what I mean? Because
I didn't know she was there.
No, of course. But what I'm trying to say...
I probably wouldn't have smacked your butt if I knew she was there.
But that's what I'm trying to say. I think for women, it's so important. It's important to have those like kind of interactions that are physical. And then it's the emotional connection. I think that's extremely important. I think a lot of the times men have the tendency to solve problems.
Right.
Sometimes, and a lot of the times, women come to their husbands not for the problem to be solved, but to be heard.
Yeah, men don't understand that.
That's why I'm saying it out loud. And I started communicating with you, sometimes when I come to you and you're like, here's the da-da-da, want to be, I'm like, no, I don't need any of that. Just listen to what I have to say. Like, let me unload.
But don't you have girlfriends for that?
Yeah, but there are certain, and most of the times I go to my girlfriends, but there are certain things that I need to come to you. So when I don't need your solutions, I kind of preface it with like, I don't need you to tell me what to do. I just need you to listen. That's also important. And again, that's communication. I think that being communicative is so essential for a woman in a relationship, to make sure that like the husband needs to be receptive to communication, which I know is a little hard for men. Again, I love to have conversations that can open up, or maybe, I don't know, like give a different perspective to someone, because I'm kind of bored of all of us saying the same thing, you know what I mean? And being politically correct.
You know, I noticed that in your episodes, some of your episodes have become less serious, which I really love. Like you're talking to people and you guys are just joking around. It doesn't have to be this big serious thing.
Yeah.
I feel with you and me, we have these conversations and parts of it are serious and parts of it we're joking around.
Yeah.
Are we going to have like an all joking around episode at some point? What do we joke around about?
Well, you can tell me more about the stories your father told you.
Can I tell you about the girl in the green bikini?
No, we'll save it for another time. I love you.
She had red hair.
I love that.
She was on a computer screen. I only saw her on a computer screen.
Amazing.
My
So
dad-
much
my
to
dad-
dive into.
My dad wanted to get a
Next
mail order
time.
bride for
Oh my
me.
God, please. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't miss my newest episode right here. And if you're listening to the podcast on Apple or Spotify, please go and leave a review with your biggest takeaway. I love reading your thoughts. They inspire me. So if you have any suggestions for guests or topics, you can leave them in the comment section. And always, always remember, you are not alone.